Hello, my name is Alex Baker, and I'm a master's student in the Civil and Environmental Engineering department with a focus in structural engineering. My research is focused on seismically resilient structures and running large-scale numerical studies on the seismic response of buildings. One part of my research is focused on a structural component called buckling restrained braces. Buckling restrained braces, or BRBs, are structural brace members that yield in both tension and compression. This characteristic of BRBs enables them to dissipate large amounts of energy, which is an attractive attribute for seismic applications. This is in contrast to conventional braces, which are prone to buckling and compression, and thus do not dissipate as much energy. The difference between BRBs and conventional braces is that BRBs have a reduced section core, which is braced against buckling, typically by encasing the core in a concrete tube. The remaining components of the BRB are stiffened, such that they remain elastic even at the full yield capacity of the yielding core. This complex geometry of BRBs presents challenges for modeling and analysis. Typically, either each component of the BRB are modeled separately, in series, or an effective prismatic brace is used. Using an effective prismatic brace is desirable since it reduces the model's complexity. However, in order to accurately represent the response of the individual brace components in series, some effective brace properties must be determined. For elastic behavior, the stiffness of the effective brace and the stiffness of the individual components in series must be equal. This can be done using the equation for springs in series. If the elastic response is the only response of interest, this will suffice. However, if performing a nonlinear analysis, the nonlinear material properties of the core cannot be applied directly to the effective spring. For example, in order to accurately capture the yield point of the brace, an effective yield stress must be determined. This can be computed by equating the yield force in the core with the yield force in the effective spring element. Since the core area will be smaller than the area of the effective spring, the effective yield stress will be smaller than the yield stress of the core. If this effective yield stress is not used, the capacity of the braces will be overestimated. After the brace yields, all plastic strain demand will be concentrated in the yielding core. Because of this, effective brace strains will be less than yielding core strains. Since higher core strain demands lead to earlier brace rupture, it is of interest to convert between effective brace strains and yielding core strains. Therefore, conversions were developed and validated by a numerical model of a typical brace. As can be seen in the graph, the yielding core strains were much greater than the effective strains. Therefore, when modeling BRBs as effective prismatic braces, the material properties of the yielding core cannot be directly applied, and the effective brace response values are not equivalent to the responses in the yielding core. Instead, effective brace properties and response conversions that consider the non-prismatic geometry of the BRB should be used. Thank you for listening to my 3-minute thesis on modeling buckling restrained braces.